Hi, I'm Neil Beck. I was a doctor in Perth, Western Australia for 53 years, and I found that the three most important things in life for my patients were good mental health, good relationships, and no addictions. The three most important things that determined whether they had a good life or a bad life with their mental health, their relationships, and whether they had any addictions. And sadly, there were a lot of people with poor mental health, with mental health problems, and a lot of people with addictions. And what was very obvious was that there were never going to be enough mental health care workers to help all the people who needed mental health care and who needed addiction care. What was happening is that people with mental health problems, many of them were not getting any help, and none of them, as far as I could see, got as much enough help. And what would happen is that some of them would then get desperate to get relief and try street medicines, and the street medicines were all addictive. We'd always had alcohol and tobacco in Perth. Tobacco kills 7 million people a year, and alcohol kills 3 million people a year, and for every one they kill, they ruin the health and the lives of many others and their families as well. But when I was young, if you wanted to go to London, you got on a boat, and it took 6 weeks. But then we got aeroplanes, and Perth, which is one of the most remote cities in the world, suddenly started to get heroin, cocaine, crystal meth, and the other main addictive substances. The 5 main calming addictive substances were alcohol, addictive tranquilizers and sleeping tablets, marijuana, heroin, and addictive painkillers. And the stimulants were tobacco, nicotine, cocaine, crystal meth, and ecstasy, MDMA. It's basically mental health disorders are downers. You're depressed, or you've got poor focusing and concentration, and upper substances help you with those problems. But it's very important that the upper substance you get to help is not addictive. The other main group of mental health disorders were downers. That's anxiety, insomnia, post-traumatic stress disorder, those sort of things. And the medicines for them, unfortunately, many were addictive, and all the street alternatives were addictive. So there was a great shortage, and it was apparent that there was never going to be enough mental health care workers and addiction workers to help all the people who needed help. And why was that? I found that it was because the tools that the mental health and addiction workers had were very limited and faulty. There were only 2 tools, medicines, many of which were addictive, and most of which were too slow, because swallowed tablets and capsules just too slow. And the other main treatment was talk therapy, consultations, psychotherapy, CBT, talk therapy, and it had two weaknesses. One was it was too slow. Talk therapy is too slow, and secondly, it's too expensive. But the other big problem was that there were so many blind areas. There were so many blind areas in the management of mental health and addiction problems that resulted in people not getting better, and when they didn't get better, they usually got worse. I just couldn't believe it that there were so many blind areas. Let me tell you about them. The first blind area is that mental health and relationships, which are the two most important things in your life and my life, were not taught in school. A terrible blind area. Those things should be #1 subjects taught in school. The second blind area is that workers in that field didn't seem to look for causes in health, and you always want to know the causes. If you know the causes, it's much easier to help people get better. They're much less likely to relapse if the causes are fixed, and if you don't find the causes and they've still got their causes, even if you manage to get them better, they're likely to relapse. The third blind area was that people with mental health problems were treated as if they were solo individuals, and mental health disorders are always family problems, and the family must be taken into account when you're treating someone with mental health disorders, and they must understand their family's mental health disorders, and if possible, the family members with mental health disorders must also be treated at the same time. A related problem to that was transgenerational trauma. It didn't seem to be recognized that if a great tragedy happens to someone in a family, that can affect the next 3 generations. That can affect their children, their grandchildren, and their great-grandchildren. And many people had problems that the causes weren't obvious if you didn't know about transgenerational trauma. If you're, as in my family's case, great uncle came back from the First World War very traumatized and became an alcoholic and never married and never had a family, that affected the next generation and the next generation in the family. If, as happened in my family, a great-grandmother born in 1860 had 9 children by 3 different husbands in the bush in the back blocks of South Australia, and then died at 42 of cancer because of all the stress she had, which depressed her immune system. That affected her children, her grandchildren, and her great-grandchildren. So a great blinds area is transgenerational trauma. And sadly, I was in my 80s before I learned about transgenerational trauma, and all those 53 years when I was a doctor, practicing doctor, I didn't know about transgenerational trauma. Well, here's the book that I learned it from. It Didn't Start With You by Mark Wallen, a wonderful book that explains so much, which I strongly recommend that you get and read. I bought it on the 8th of January this year, and I've read it 4 times since. Another blind area was that in mental health and addiction, we seem to be very wrapped up in giving people a diagnosis. Oh, you've got this, or you've got that, or you've got something else. Major depression, bipolar disorder, ADD, ADHD, PTSD. Well, that's useful often, but what's really most important is that people must be told what they need, what they want. If you've got major depression, what you need and want is to be happier and to be cheerful. If you've got ADD, ADHD, what you need is to be able to focus and concentrate better and to be less impulsive and make better decisions. If you've got bipolar disorder, what you need to know is how to come down from the highs and how to come up from the lows. I think that it's a serious blind area in mental health that we don't emphasize the things that people need. We emphasize what they've got, which is sometimes helpful and sometimes very depressing, but we don't tell them what they need. Another blind area is people are not taught self-help. If there's never going to be enough helpers, then you have to help yourself. And people can be taught self-help. They can, instead of just being given a prescription or talking about things, it's explained to them how they can help themselves. That's very important. Another blind area is that we don't realize that mental health and addiction problems are emergencies. They must be treated as an emergency. The earlier a person's mental health problem is diagnosed and treated, the quicker they get better, the less work it is, the less complications they get, because but so many mental health issues, nothing is done until they crash. What happens is they have a problem, and the problem leads to problems, which leads to complications, which leads to more problems and complications. They start off with ADD in early childhood. They're a bit of a problem child, which creates some friction and perhaps loss of self-esteem. And then they get to school and they're a problem in the classroom, and they disturb the other kids and the teachers, and they get cop a bit of flack. They don't get a very good education, so they tend to leave school early with a poor education, have poor employment or unemployment, and then poor incomes and problems with having a proper life. If you wait until someone crashes, if they start with ADD or bipolar disorder and they have poor employment and they get a drinking problem or some sort of a drug problem, and then they have marital problems, they have homeless periods, then eventually they crash and end up in hospital, and they have to be pretty bad to get in hospital, because mostly when they turn up at hospital they just get chucked back out on the street, but some of them crash, and then it's 10 or 20 times more work to try to make them help them to get better, and in fact most of them never get completely better. The ninth blind area is that too much mental health and addiction care is focused on who to blame. We go in and say, oh, who to blame? Oh, you had a bad mother. Oh, you had a drunk grandfather. Oh, yeah. So blaming is almost never right, and it's always very unhelpful. mental health problems are just one link in a chain, and they're one person in a chain of people. There were nearly always multiple things that led a person to have mental health or addiction problems, and for families to have mental health or addiction problems, and just finding someone to blame is almost never right, and it always makes things worse, because what you need to know is exactly what happened and why when it started. What happened, exactly what happened, and exactly why. And you don't ask why once, you ask why 5 times. Why this, then why that, then why that, then why that, then why that. And if you blame people, they don't tell you the truth, and you don't find out what exactly happened, and you don't find out exactly why. And the 10th blind factor is that we don't realize that a lot of mental health suffering and addiction is a sort of misguided family loyalty. People in a family think, oh, my family is poor, they struggle, and they have alcohol or drug problems, and it wouldn't be right for me to be happier or better or than my family. Of course, some people do the opposite. They say, well, that's my family is not good, and I'm going to be different. But a lot of people do what's loyal to their family. If their family's poor, they feel they've got to stay poor. It would be wrong for them to be have more than their mother had or more than their grandfather had. So misguided family loyalty is a problem. What should happen is, if a person is troubled, we do the why thing. We find out exactly why, what happened and exactly why, and we find out who else in the family, and we help them all to get better together. Not to hold one another down, but to lift one another up together, because mental health and addiction problems are so often family problems. So, what's the solution? What's the solution? Well, I started to work 10 hours a week in an addiction clinic in 1997, when we had a terrible epidemic of heroin addiction in Perth. We hadn't had those sort of drugs before, but suddenly we had heroin in a big way, and people were dying right, left and centre. Some young people told me they were the last person standing in their group of friends. Everybody else had OD'd. So I thought I'd better find out about heroin. I started to work in a heroin clinic. And of course I wanted to know what caused addiction. But they didn't know at that clinic, and they didn't think that was important to know. I went to every addiction clinic in Perth and Sydney and couldn't find a single addiction worker who thought it was who knew what caused addiction or thought that was important. Or they'd say things like, oh, they're just dickheads chasing highs. But to me, they looked sick. And I reached the opinion that addiction was secondary to sickness. Usually mental sickness more than physical sickness. And one day in that clinic where I was working 10 hours a week, I saw 15 heroin addicts, and 5 of them had ADD, ADHD, all undiagnosed and untreated. And then I looked more carefully, and I found that nearly every addict had 2 or 3 serious mental health problems, not just one. That's another blind area that we tend to think that they've only got one mental health disorder, but they've nearly all got 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. Perhaps one is the biggest, but there are others as well. And what were they? I found that the commonest were worry, anxiety disorders, which included panic attacks and social phobia and obsessive compulsive disorder and all sorts of phobias. Then there was major depression. And then there was bipolar disorder, which was highs, lows. And then there was ADD, ADHD. And then there was post-traumatic stress disorder. And then there was irritability, anger, violence disorder. And then there was post-traumatic evil focus disorder. And then there was schizophrenia. And then there's autistic disorder, and there was very low self-esteem. Very low self-esteem was a disorder, in my opinion. So that was what caused 95% of the addictions that I saw. Just about one in 25% was due to a physical problem or a social problem. The physical problem usually was a severe pain problem due to injury or disease. But often the injury or disease was due to mental health problems. And people who had no mental health problems, who had painful injuries or diseases, were not nearly as likely to become addicts as people who had mental health disorders, who then had serious accidents or serious painful diseases. And a few were wives of addicts who didn't really have, they had a social problem. They were married to an addict. They didn't have much of a mental health problem themselves, but they just kept their husband company with the alcohol and the tobacco and the drugs. So what is the solution? The solution is effective tools. Today we have tools for everything. If everything that needs to be done, we've got tools that enable us to do it quicker, better, cheaper. If there isn't a good tool, someone makes a good tool. Some tools now are incredible robots and so on, but apart from that, instead of the old hammer and chisel and hand drills, we've got electrical drills, electrical saws, buzzers instead of rasps. We've got instead of push-pull mowers, we've got electrical mowers or motor mowers. In the workshop, we've got so many tools. In factories, so many tools. We've got tools for everything, but in mental health, only 2 tools. Medicines, which have got 2 great problems, and talk therapy, which has got 2 problems. Medicines, the problem is that the people who take medicine want to take the medicine and get better quickly and then stop taking it, but the people who make medicine want to sell as much medicine as possible for as long as possible. They want you to go on taking medicine, as many medicines as possible for as long as possible, and they achieve that in 2 ways. They make many medicines addictive. So as long as I can remember, Nearly all the medicines for the commonest problem of worry, anxiety are addictive. Originally it was barbiturates. There were many barbiturates and they were all addictive. And then in the 1960s we started to get these new wonderful benzodiazepines, Valium, Seroprax, Mogadon, Xanax, but they're all addictive too. And Ambien, Stilnox, for sleeping, addictive. I once had a patient referred to me who was taking 17 Ambien Stilnox tablets every night to go to sleep. So I did a search on the commonest medicines prescribed in the US at that time. In the US every year they publish a list of the 100 most prescribed medicines, and Ambien was the commonest prescribed medicine for the previous 3 years. Not because it's good, but because it's addictive. So a gold mine for the pharmaceutical industry. And then medicines, they make medicines too slow. Most medicines are tablets or capsules. When you swallow them, they take half an hour to an hour to go right down in your stomach and start to get into the bloodstream and go to your brain or wherever they're needed. And half an hour to an hour to start and 1 to 2 hours to work strongly is just too slow, for things like anxiety or depression. Antidepressants usually take 2 to 4 weeks to start to work. So they're too slow. And talk therapy is too slow. It takes too long talking to someone to find out what their problems are, and you usually only find out the main things and you miss the smaller things which are still quite significant. And talk therapy costs too much, because to be a therapist you have to have a long training. To be a therapist you need to have at least a 4-year Bachelor of Psychology degree, or a 6 or 7 year PhD psychology degree, or to become a psychiatrist, a 6-year general medical degree, and then a couple of years general medical practice, and then 3, 4 or 5 years specialist psychiatric training. So 10 to 12 years to become a psychiatrist. So they have such a long training period that they have to be paid well. They deserve to be paid well. If we don't pay them well, we'll have even less of them. So over 27 years I developed 8 tools to make the treatment of mental health and addiction much faster, much more effective, and to help people to be able to help themselves much more. The first tool was videos. There's no faster, better, quicker, lower cost way to understand a mental health problem than to watch a 1-minute video on it. My original videos 15 years ago were long, but people want to watch 1-minute videos, so now I've got 83 under a minute videos that you can watch. The second tool was website. My original website, not my original one, but eventually what I had was mentalhealthvideos.a-to-z.com. It was about 14 pages long and pretty detailed, and people wanted something shorter, so that's still there. And my original 31 longer videos, but we've got a website which is just simply smilefixit.com. smilefixit.com, a one-page website, and on it you can just tap whichever links take you to the detail that you want. The third tool was the Mental Fix-It app. The Mental Fix-It app asks questions about all aspects, all the main aspects of mental health and addiction. The first version of it asked 38 questions, and it took people, they had to tap their choice of 3 answers for each question, and that took them about 10 minutes, and that was too long. They didn't want to do that, so then we reduced the number of questions to 19, and they could tap their answers to that in 5 minutes. And if they tapped anything no a couple of times, then that question only got asked every 4th time, so they got asked less questions, and they could do their mental fix-it app check in 3 or 4 minutes. And it gave them an instant report that told them what all their problems were, with scores for each in descending order of score, which 6 of our 80 under a minute videos would help their particular problems most. Because if there's 83 1-minute videos, which ones do you watch? Well, the Mental Fix-It App soon tells you that. And it tells you which medicines are most likely to help you, and it gives you the total score each time you do the check, because you need to do the check often. Mental health is not as complicated as it's made out to be. The DSM-5 Bible of mental health says there's about 500 different things, but there's about 10 main ones. But even the 10 main ones take a while to understand, but you can understand them all by just repeating the Mental Fix-It app over and over and over again until you understand it, and watching the videos which cover each individual problem. And each time you do the check, you get a total score for all the things that you've tapped which are a problem. And so the 4th item in the app report is a graph of your total scores, and you can see from your graph of your total scores whether you're getting better or not. If you're getting better, you're on the you're on the right treatment. If you're not getting better, you have to think about the treatment again. It's not working. You'll need to get more treatment or different treatment. So the 4th tool is live streaming, which is what I'm doing now, because a lot of people like to watch live streaming, and I do it 4 times a week, and get somewhere between 800 and 8,700 viewers each time. Don't get as many viewers as I used to. Used to always get 3,000 or 4,000 viewers each session. Sometimes once 8,600 viewers, once 8,700 viewers. But because there's a limited number of factors, and so I have to repeat myself a lot. A lot of people, once they've heard it all 3 times, they don't watch anymore. But live streaming is very valuable, very helpful. We do a bit over an hour on Wednesday, Friday and Saturday evenings, 7 p.m. Perth time, and 9 a.m. Sunday Perth time. We used to do Sunday evening as well, but now we sometimes get almost half of our viewers in the Northern Hemisphere, and 7 a.m. Perth time is 7 p.m. Perth time is 7 a.m. New York time, and 4 a.m. LA time. So that's not a very good time, not a very user-friendly time. So we do the Sunday morning now, which is the evening in the Northern Hemisphere. The 5th tool is powder medicines. Why powder medicines? Powder medicines start to work in 5 minutes and work strongly in 10 to 15 minutes. And that's much, much more helpful than taking half an hour to an hour to start to work and 1 to 2 hours to work strongly, which is what swallowed medicines do. your tongue is pink or red because the blood vessels in your tongue are very close to the surface, and if you drop thousands of tiny grains of powder medicine on your tongue and suck it, don't swallow it, it gets into those blood vessels very quickly and starts to work in 5 minutes. And then after a couple of weeks it starts to work in seconds, because as soon as you taste it you get a placebo effect. A placebo effect is not a mock effect, it's a real effect. As soon as you taste the medicine it starts to work. Also, powder medicines are more flexible, so you can get more exact, correct doses. If you don't get enough of a medicine, it doesn't work very well. If you get too much of a medicine, you get side effects. And with tablets and capsules, it's hard to get exactly the right amount for your particular weight and your particular digestive system and your excretion rate, because your kidneys start to excrete medicine and your liver starts to break down and excrete medicine, and getting exactly the right amount is very important, which is much easier with flexible powder than with tablets and capsules, even if there's 2 different strengths of tablets or capsules, and even if you can break the tablets in halves. And also almost all of my patients really needed more than one medicine. The addicts nearly all had 1 or 2 severe cravings which they needed help with, and they nearly all had 2 or 3 mental health disorders which require different medicines. And with powders you can mix 2 or 3 or 4 medicines together in one powder, which they can take, which gives them far more relief and a far better chance of getting better and quitting their addiction than what tablets give. Even if you give them 2 or 3 separate tablets, which I used to do, but they tend to be too expensive. Each separate tablet is a costly prescription, and they get them mixed up and they run out of this one and they haven't got enough of that one, and they end up on an unbalanced combination. Well, the mixed powders are not completely balanced, but they're much better than tablets. And the 6th tool was powder medicine dispensers, because having your powder medicine in a bottle with a little scoop was a bit awkward and not as accurate as you might want. But when you've got your powder medicine in a pocket dispenser, you've got it in your pocket, and anytime, anywhere, when you feel the need for the medicine, you just whiz it out and drop it on your tongue, and it starts working in 5 minutes and then in seconds. Even driving a car, you can take your powder medicine, or anywhere, in a queue, or at your work desk, or anywhere. You can take the medicine very quickly, get the right amount, have the right combination, and start to get the results fast. So dispense is very helpful. I've got 6 combinations of medicines. Calm Fast, which is a combination of baclofen, calming, relaxing medicine, mirtazapine, calming antidepressant, and microdose naltrexone. Then there's Up Fast. Up Fast is a combination of a non-addictive stimulant medicine, modafinil, and microdose naltrexone. And then there's morning low fix and evening low fix, which combinations of antidepressants with the non-addictive stimulant modafinil, because antidepressants take 2 to 4 weeks to start to work, and in that time desperate people can get onto drugs or alcohol instead. But if the antidepressant has got The morning one's got a stimulant mixed with it, and the evening one's got a calming medicine mixed with it. They get an effect straight away, which is encouraging and helps them to hang on and not turn to alcohol or drugs. And we've got anger fix, and we've got tobacco fix, and we've got racing fix, which are combinations of different things. If you want to understand those medicines, just go to smilefixit.com, smilefixit.com, and you can read about them. The seventh tool is a cut-down stethoscope, which is a meditation, heartbeat meditation aid. Meditation is such a valuable thing for people with mental health and addiction disorders, but the people who benefit most have a lot of difficulty learning to meditate, because they usually teach you meditate by focusing on your breathing or focusing on a word and trying to forget all your problems, which gives you a rest, a break, which helps to calm you and refresh you and make you happier and stronger. But it's hard to stop thinking about your troubles if they're bad and big, and your breathing, or the word's not a very attention-grabbing thing. But your heartbeat is loud and strong. I've been listening to hearts for 50 years, 60 years, and heartbeats are loud and strong and interesting. So a short stethoscope, that's the hearing part. You just stick it down under your clothes on the upper left-hand side of your chest, and you can hear your heart beating loudly and strongly. And that's a much more attention-grabbing thing, and it helps you much more to stop thinking about all your problems. And after a couple of months of that, you get quite good at meditating, and then you can meditate based on your breathing, which is really the best, because your breathing is related to your emotional condition. If you want one of these, we can send you one for $25 and postage anywhere in the world. The eighth tool, which is not widely available yet, is pocket powder, fruit powder dispenser. This gives a bigger dose. The medicine dispenser dose is such a small amount that it doesn't give you a very good taste, but these ones give you approximately 1 ml amount of powder. My favorite is vanilla, but your favorite might be blueberry or raspberry or strawberry or banana or something else. The idea is that if you are trying not to smoke, every time you think of smoking, you can just whip this out of your pocket, have a lovely taste, and you focus on the taste and try to forget the smoking. When the taste starts to fade, you have another taste, and the longer you can put off the smoking, the weaker the smoking habit gets. You break habits by delaying them and doing less of them, and that weakens the underlying drives, the electrical and chemical impulses that drive the craving. So this can help you with drug habits, but it can also help you with other habits. If you want to learn a new habit, that might be exercise, or playing the piano, or playing the violin, and you want to do it but you sort of don't want to do it. It's you're a bit mixed. Well, every time you think about it, you give yourself a lovely taste, and every time you do it, you give yourself a lovely taste, and the more you do that, the easier it gets to do the new habit. And how do you make habits? You do things over and over and over again till the underlying electrical and chemical messages are strong, and then the habit becomes automatic, and it's very easy to do. You can do it almost without thinking about it, without any effort. So that's my eighth tool. uh, which will be available in about a month. We've only got a small number of the initial ones at the present time. The ninth tool I've sort of put on the back burner. I think it's going to be great. I call it Phone Treasure. I want everybody to have lovely things on their phone, so that wherever they are, if they don't feel very good, or they have a feeling they want to stop, just whiz it out and look at their phone. Phone Treasure, photos, videos, music, beautiful rivers, beautiful mountains, lovely sayings, their girlfriend or their grandchildren or whatever. But that's on the back burner at the moment, because I'm working as hard as I can on tool number 10, which I think is going to be a ripper. Tool number 10 I call Scroll Plus, Mental Scroll Plus. And Mental Scroll Plus overcomes a problem. As I see it, we need to understand things, and we need to understand what causes them and how to fix them. And the old thing was big books. When I was a medical student, 1,200 page books, 500, 800 page books, long lectures, and in more recent times, podcasts and things that go on for 2 hours. And the problem was that that gave you all the detail you needed, and it gave you a lot of detail you didn't need, and some things got buried in the detail, like transgeneration trauma, I think, has been buried in all the detail. And it took me till I was in my 80s to discover transgenerational trauma, because it was buried in all that detail. But the modern thing is scrolling. You race through things very fast. TikTok has over 1 billion visitors each month. Over 1 billion visitors. That's a miracle, isn't it? And a lot of them just scroll, and they cover so much ground. They find so many things, but there's no detail. And we need to cover the whole field, and we need to get the relevant detail. We only want to know the detail that's relevant to us. So my solution is Mental Scroll Plus. Let me tell you about it. I just got to find it first. So the Mental Fix-It Scroll Plus. We've got 81 which is all the main factors in mental health that I can find in mental health and addiction. About 81 factors. And I've divided them into 7 groups. Group 1 is feelings are usually the most powerful things in our life. 19 factors. Second group, to be happy and healthy, what helps most is growing our mental health. 24 factors. The third thing is relationships. Relationships is the second most important thing in life after mental health, and there are 8 factors in that. I'll probably have more than 8 factors eventually. Then there's habits. Habits are so important. Habits are 60 to 65% of our life, and our quality of life depends on how many of our habits are good habits and how many habits of our habits are bad habits. Well, actually, I now think that there are 4 kinds of habits. There's good habits, there's uh, good warning habits that aren't very nice, there's bad habits, and there's lovely pleasures that are addictive and can kill you. So we need to have as many good habits as possible. We need warning habits. The warning habits, there are 4. They are loneliness. If we don't feel loneliness, we don't realize we haven't got enough friends. Then there's anger. If we don't sometimes feel angry, we don't realize that that's not right. Things are not right. We've got to stop them. Or they didn't happen, they should happen, so we get a bit angry about that. I don't mean domestic violence, I don't mean fighting in the pub or fighting in the school ground. I mean warnings that things are wrong and need to be fixed. The feeling of anger. There's sadness. If we don't feel sad, we don't realize we need to grieve. If we don't grieve when we've had a serious loss, that loss doesn't get resolved. We need to resolve serious losses with grieving, so we need to grieve. We need to feel sadness. And the 4th one, I find it a little bit hard to explain this, but the 4th one is a kind of worry or a kind of anxiety which I call anxious carefulness. We must sometimes experience anxious carefulness because we're in an area of danger, and we have to be careful. So good unhappy warning feelings. Then there's the 6th group is addictions, 7 main addictions, and the 7th group is medicines, 10 main medicines. So what you do is you can scroll through those 81 titles. You start in whichever group is of most interest and value to you. So for some people that'll be the feelings groups, for some it'll be the families group, for some it'll be the habits group, but you start on the group that is of most interest and value to you, and you can scroll through the items in that group very quickly, and you can scroll through the whole 81 items very quickly. And whenever you see something that, yeah, I need to know about that, you can tap on a short video, because we've got a 6 to 16 second video on all of those 81 things. So you see the title and you say, oh yeah, I need to know about this, and you just tap the short video and you get a 6 to 16 second video on it. And if that gives you information you think, gee, that's good, I need to know, but I need a bit more, well, then you tap the 1 minute video on it, and then you get more. And at any time you can tap the Mental Fix It app and do a 2-minute check, and it instantly gives you the 6 videos to watch. So I want people to be able in a short time to be able to scroll through everything so they miss nothing. They don't have to wait till they're 80 before they find out about transgenerational trauma, but then they can get the detail they need very quickly, so that, you know, in 15 minutes someone who's never ever had any information about mental health or addiction and they're troubled can within 15 minutes know what their problems are and already learn quite a lot about those problems and know where to go to get more and more detail and to solve their problems. Let me give you a few of them. So, feelings are usually the most powerful things in our life. 14 factors. The title for that is, the titles for that, number one is to get a happy, healthy life, quickly get your bad feelings fixed and develop lots of good feelings. The second title is 11 common mental health disorders cause most of the bad feelings. The third title is we produce 25 feel-good chemicals in our brain, glands and gut. The fourth title is our feel-good chemicals also boost our disease-fighting immune system, which keeps us healthy. The fifth title is to be both happy and healthy, keep your feel-good chemistry strong. But if what interested you most was mental health disorders, well, you can go straight to the mental health disorders and scroll the titles and instantly tap on the short videos that interest you, and if the short videos indicate that that's really what you need to know about, you can straight away do the 1-minute videos. So here are some mental health disorders, 24 factors. To have a happy, healthy life, the most important thing we can do is to grow our mental health. The second title is mental health is good feelings, good thinking, good habits, normal warning feelings and no bad habits. The third title is to fix mental disorder, bad feelings. Often do 2-minute mental fix-it app checks and watch the 1-minute videos it recommends. The fourth title is to fix big impossible problems. First fix the small fixable problems. Some problems are so big you can't even face them. Well, instead of despairing and turning to heroin or crystal meth or something, you get the list. You find a smaller problem that you can deal with, and you deal with the smaller problem, and when you've dealt with the smaller problem, might have only been 10 or 15% of your problem, but you'll feel happier and stronger, and you'll have learned a bit more about how to deal with things, and then you can deal with another short one, then another short one, and then you can deal with the big ones. A fifth item under mental health is for health and happiness, good sleep is a necessity, not a luxury. The sixth, to fix worry, anxiety, first understand how it started. The seventh, to fix your worst fears, write them down, then write down what you love most. Writing your fears down helps you to clarify them. Instead of being vaguely very worried, you face them, you look at them, and you read that, and then you watch the videos, and you gradually learn to understand and then to deal with your worst fears, and then they stop being your worst fears. If you're being sexually abused, tell someone. Sex is big and it can make us or break us. Beat bullying. Get good at helping and being helped. Some people are easy to help and some people are difficult to help and some people are impossible to help. Your life is much better if you learn how to be easy to help. And your life is better if you learn how to be a good helper. Sadly, I've got a friend whose children won't talk to him because he's a terrible helper. You've got to be a good helper, not a bad helper. You tell them the knowledge that you have, and they have to make their own decisions and run their own life. But some people just want to take your life over and tell you what your decisions are, and that doesn't help. So, altogether, 81 items. I hope that I'll have this 10th tool, the mental fix-it scrolling plus tool finished in the next couple of weeks, and then my tech support guy will take a couple of weeks to put it online, and then we'll be in business. Okay, well, I'm sorry that I can't talk to people individually, but we just have so many viewers we can't do that. But I'm very interested to receive from you any comments, questions, or criticisms that you have, whichever platform you watch on, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Instagram, or Facebook. Please, through that platform, send me your comments, questions, and criticisms, and I'll respond to them. Or email me. My email for that is spelt the way it sounds, is healthestuff@gmail.com. healthestuff@gmail.com. You may not be able to remember that, and if not, we'll just look at the website smilefixit.com. smilefixit.com, and you'll find that email address, and send me an email, because for the next hour I'll be responding to those comments, questions, and criticism and emails, and tomorrow morning I'll spend another hour responding to them, because I really do want to know what you think and what you want to know. So enough for today. Today is Saturday. I'll be back at 9 a.m. Sunday morning Perth time, which is in the evening in the Northern Hemisphere.